Well, welcome everyone to the session this morning. Clearly, there's a lot of interest in talking ChatGPT from a K-12 perspective. And we are really excited here at MASA to welcome Eric Simmons, Sean Beaverson, and hopefully Anthony Padrnos, just as soon as he can figure out how to get past the endless registration loop spiral that he's kind of stuck in right now. So if you're like me, you've been following a lot of the ChatGPT conversations about how school districts are responding, what they're thinking about. And it's probably about 6 weeks ago now that I think Deb reached out to Eric as one of our tech folks on the MASA board and the technology component group to say, help, can you give us some ideas and suggestions as to how school districts should be thinking about this? So we are really excited to welcome Eric and Sean this morning. Dave, Dave looks like he might be on the phone with Anthony. So we will welcome Anthony when he arrives, but we will turn it over to Eric and Sean right now.
Yes, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here this morning. And I will share my screen over here. Sean, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see what we have going on?
You're good to go. You're good to go.
Good to go. So like Lori mentioned, we are here to talk a little bit about kind of ChatGPT and AI in general and where that's headed. And so like I'm Eric Simmons, I'm the Director of Technology Services in Chisago Lakes.
And I'm Sean Beaverson. I'm the District Technology Coordinator for Orono Public Schools.
And shortly, we will have Anthony Padrnos, the Executive Director of Technology in Osseo area schools, joining us here. So our two objectives for this session this morning is to give you a kind of a greater understanding of what ChatGPT and artificial intelligence is in general, and also give you some time to explore how AI technology can apply to education. We wanted to kick off this with a quick poll to see, what do you already know about ChatGPT? So you could either scan that QR code from your phone or go to menti.com and type in the 8-digit code there. So I will leave this up and give you all a minute to submit a response to our poll here about what do you already know about ChatGPT? So I see, it looks like we have 46, 47 responses coming in, 49. And I think you can all see the responses on your screen as well, but so far we have a lot of very little. Some students are using it and save me a lot of time. See a lot. I'm a tech director. I don't know if that's Sean.
Eric, we can't see the actual results yet on the screen.
I'll pull that open.
Thank you, sir.
Let me pop these open here. Quite a bit. Instruction, we've used ChatGPT, very limited knowledge. same, but not a lot. So, and I know you on your end, you can see all these answers as well. I have these published to you. So that helps us give a baseline, and we're hoping to give you at least a little bit of overview of what ChatGPT is within your system. So from here, I'm looking here to see if Anthony has jumped on yet.
Dave is on the phone with him right now, Eric.
Okay. So this is an older, and Sean, I'll let you kind of maybe give a preface and I'll get this queued up to
Sure. Yeah. So we're doing a little soft shoe shuffle because this was Anthony's part. We're doing a little throwback to when we began our careers as tech educationalists. And so I had a lot more hair and a lot less gray. And then this video came out, Did You Know? And I think probably many of you, if you are here and are participating in this, remember this video coming out and sitting in perhaps a cafeteria. That's where I was when I first saw it, and saw some of the information that came through this, and was really like, blown away by the potential changes that seemed to be on the doorstep. And this was previous to one-to-one becoming a reality for school districts, before the advent of the iPad, before Chromebooks became available. And so if you just kind of think back, just to frame yourself to think back, what we were doing those 2 years before one-to-one really became an option, before the iPad and the Chromebooks were even invented, watching this and how we were thinking. And we brought this up, or we share this video to kind of frame this as we would make the case that we're having a similar moment here with the rapid development of AI over the past few months.
We're gonna play just the first maybe 60 seconds or so of this video. I think a lot of you have probably seen that, or maybe you can recall seeing this video a little bit.
Yeah, like this one, I remember thinking 25% of the population of India's highest IQ is greater than the entire population of the United States. It's kind of mind-blowing. I saw some familiar names in the list too, and so I can imagine a few of you are having this kind of that remembrance of this. Remembrance isn't really a word. Remembrance of this moment when this video came out. Launched a lot of tech integrationist careers, I believe.
I think that's a good place for us to stop that. I'll jump over to our next slide here.
And so what Anthony is going to share, or was going to share, is this is one of those moments, right? So I've had the benefit of having started teaching late in the last century and bridging the century into the new millennia, and before Google and after Google. And so one of the things that I have been really thinking about with this is, if the World Wide Web was a Gutenberg moment when the printing press became available and information suddenly became easier to generate and to share, then sort of how I've been imagining AI is equivalent to when the populace became literate. AI empowers the end user to interact in conversational manners to get technical results. And so the sea change that's coming with the advent of AI and just the rapid changing in AI over the past few months is a demonstration that this has a real potential. It has a lot of signs of a major disruption in what we have experienced previously, particularly those of us who may have began our teaching careers in the last century.
So this slide, Sean had actually put some of these numbers in front of us when we were planning this session, and I feel like it's really helpful, and we felt like it's helpful to share just the trajectory and how quick ChatGPT and this AI is happening. I know often we hear a lot of tools I think sometimes as school leaders or district leaders, you're trying to decipher which of these is worth your time to learn a little bit more about, or which of these is, maybe just popping up within your school. But for example, this is a total number of years to reach 100 million users. We'll start on the right side with Facebook. It took 4 years to reach 100 million users. You can kind of see as we move from right to left, it took YouTube about 7 years to reach 100 million users. Twitter was closer to that 5 years. WhatsApp is 4 years. But if you look at ChatGPT, even compared to something like Instagram, like ChatGPT reached 100 million users in 64 days. And this piece of data is just one piece of data, but this helped me wrap my head around a little bit of like how important it would be for us to have some of these conversations within our district, and just for myself to learn a little bit more about, spend a little bit more time on my own to dig into ChatGPT and AI tools in general. And I thought this was helpful data to share, because this is, at least in our opinion, not one of those that you can kind of sit on the wayside and ignore the use.
So I'm going to talk just a little bit about what to frame what is this thing called ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a brand like Xerox. It's a version of, you can switch to the next one, that's great. It's a version of artificial intelligence, which is a particular type of computational output, right? So AI is a combination of machine learning algorithms in such a way that it creates the appearance of intelligence. And it does that by generating novel responses based on a huge data set. And so machine learning is when our iPhone got smarter and noticed that we are on our way to work, and then it said, hey, are you going to work? Would you like to? Or when you're wearing your watch and you finish walking and then you forget to turn it off, and then it's like, hey, did you want to turn this off? Because it doesn't appear as though you're working or walking anymore. That's machine learning. Artificial intelligence takes that information and then provides for you some recommendations out of it that, again, are novel. It takes the information and combines it in new and novel ways. And that's one of the things, particularly in the early days. Right away, people were like, oh my gosh, this can write a 5-paragraph essay, or oh my gosh, this can summarize Hamlet. Yep, it can do those things, and pretty remarkably. But that's like from our familiarity, starting from our familiarity and testing out the tool, but it can do significantly more than that as well. And so the next slide kind of just breaks down, like, in the 4 months since ChatGPT was released, which uses a data set of 175 billion different data points. In just 4 months, they released ChatGPT-4. And ChatGPT-4 is an expansion to 1 trillion data points. The data lake that it's pulling from is 1 trillion. So you can see just in that 4-month period, the rapid change from the iteration from GPT 3.5 to 4, just in 4 months. I called up the brain, estimated brain has 86 billion neurons. And so we are really talking about an era in computational processing that is significantly getting closer to the human brain. It is not the human brain, and we'll talk more about the ways in which it is not the human brain, but it is sort of having that that functionality, or getting closer and closer to that functionality, which is, pretty amazing as well. This is Anthony again. Poor Anthony. I'm sure he's.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we got him. All right.
All right. So went through this interesting infinite loop, and ChatGPT couldn't help me out in this space. But glad to be here. Hello, everyone. Good morning. And I'm sure you've gotten some good background information as Sean and Eric have engaged. One of the things we kind of wanted to dig into and probe into as we push is, there's a lot of current opportunities that we definitely see as we're engaging. with exploring this tool, but there's actually a lot of resources that are starting to get published and put out. And we've got an amazing document that Sean put together at the end that we'll talk about with some resources for you to dig deeper. But really where we'd like to get you thinking is there's kind of two opportunities as you think about ChatGPT. One is, immediately as we think about this in education, is that classroom application, but also around there's opportunities within the operations and business side of what we do as an organization. And as Sean and Eric have spoken to, ChatGPT and other AI technologies are rapidly coming to the market. And I was reading an article this morning that just in the last week, there have been 100 AI apps that have come out that have been connected back to ChatGPT or other forms of these AI technologies that are starting to be developed. And, just last night, I went into my iPhone app store and looked at what is there. And there's over 25 mobile apps already on your phone or able to be downloaded on your phone that are connected back to ChatGPT. And there's a lot of common educational technologies that are now connecting into this to really look at how to offer more personalized learning opportunities for students. So, a few examples that you can see on this slide. Tools like Khan Academy and Quizlet are two tools that have recently connected into ChatGPT, looking at how to create kind of personalized tutoring opportunities for students as they're, working on math applications within Khan Academy, or in Quizlet, which is, kind of was originally designed as a basic flashcard tool. And now when you think about its connection into ChatGPT, it can create responsive questions and personalized kind of questions around particular topics as students are creating kind of study decks that they might want to work with. From an operations and business side, Sean has done some great opportunities of looking at just how to do quick summaries and reviews of data privacy with applications we might be using on a technology side. But even our whole planning of this session, we use ChatGPT to kind of help organize and outline. So, we asked ChatGPT things about, creating an outline of how we would do a session around ChatGPT for school district leaders. As a starting point, it can help to generate professional development plans. It can help to summarize information. So, you could have a highly technical document that you want to make it more consumer friendly to our parents and our community members. And tools like ChatGPT can take a complex document and summarize it and simplify it in a way that makes it consumable and manageable by the audience we might want to tailor it to, as well as, as I mentioned with Sean's example of, taking hey, you heard this new ed tech tool that your system wants to use, asking ChatGPT to do a summary of what are the data practices that this technology company has, and summarize that and highlight the bullet points to give you a quick brief to use in discussions around that particular tool. Or I was even thinking of the complex legal briefs that our general counsel and Osseo might put together sometimes. How could I just stick that into ChatGPT and summarize that down into 5-6 key bullet points as the takeaways that I can use with my team as we navigate what that might be. And as we look at these technologies, I think for me, the immediate reaction, at least that we saw in our system, and I've talked to colleagues across the country around this, is there's been a lot of immediate reaction to kind of fear the tool or push away from the tool because of the unknown. It's really our run, hide, flight or fight response that comes into play. And I think as we talked about the disruptors that have come throughout our course within technology, I think we need to embrace it and look at how we can allow this tool to help our system move forward. But I think it's also critical that we have some mindful inquiry around the ethical considerations around these digital tools. And I think about historically, as technology evolved within the educational landscape. We started bringing a lot of tools into our classroom, and we've been playing a lot of catch up over the last few years to rapidly get on pace when we think about data privacy and the data that's being collected and how these tools are being used. We think about the Minnesota data privacy law that came out last year that is kind of a catch up to where things have been going within the technology. And I think it's critical for us as this new technology is evolving that we stay on the front side of this and start having the conversations now versus running with the tool and then coming back on the conversations at a later point in time. And some questions that I think as an organization is worth you considering and getting into good conversations is really, the first big one is what does your digital citizenship look like for your system? What are those conversations that you've had with students and staff around what good digital hygiene and digital citizenship looks like and means for our system? Because there are, the first ethical question that comes up is around, the authenticity of the work that's generated, plagiarism. And what does that mean when you have tools like this that can create very, very rich and quality level products? The second question that I, would pose is, as you think about this, how is your organization planned for potential risks? So, when we're on the educational side, we think about that digital citizenship piece, but here's the other ethical component that these technologies on a larger scale are going to have to wrestle with is it's not just language that this written language that this can produce. It can produce computer language as well. And these AI technologies can very easily produce a ransomware code for somebody who just wants to play around and see what it can do. Or how can I create some kind of code to create an attack on a school system? And a student just trying to be curious and what this could do, could create things that could be harmful for your organization. When we think about plans, a student or an individual could use one of these AI technologies to say, generate a plan for me to create harm or mass destruction to an organization in some form or fashion, and these tools can do it. ChatGPT seems to be taking a stance on trying to make sure that there's quality, ethical components within the tool that they're building. For example, you can't have ChatGPT create executable code for you, but that doesn't mean there's not other technologies like this out there that could. And in absence of government action occurring around these tools, I think it's mindful of us to kind of process through these and what they mean for our organization and how we're prepared to navigate them in our organization. And I think on a greater scale, I think there's a real need to have a proactive conversation with your communities that we serve around digital ethics. And so it's more than just our school community and what we're doing with our students, but how are we engaging the greater communities that we serve, the parents that are in the community, and having the conversations around the power and opportunity that these technologies hold, as well as, how are we as a larger community going to navigate and help collectively educate and proactively navigate the ethical challenges that could come as these technologies rapidly evolve. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Sean to start getting into some opportunities around the applications that go along with this.
Sean, before I turn the screen share off, I'll leave this slide up here and link as well.
Yeah, so we'll try some things out here in just a moment and give some demos. So I just read this or found this cartoon last night. And it's whimsical, but it's also, there's some reality to the fact of this particular cartoon as well. The points that Anthony brought up on the previous slide, when we were talking about it, what I mentioned or what I uttered was, I wonder how our current digital citizenship efforts would stand up to this new disruption. And I guess one of the points that I'm hoping to get across is that with the pace of this change that appears to be coming with this particular technology, we need to reassure that our previous practices, our current efforts, are implemented in a way that we'll be able to withstand this. And my experience is digital citizenship has been a wonderful thing in which we've taught. And if you are fortunate enough to have a fully fledged media program, the media specialists have taken a lot of that effort on. There's incredible organizations, Common Sense Media, that help support that. But it needs to be reimagined and reconsidered to the depth of what it really should look like through our school system. And if it's a side conversation, what I wonder, because I'm coming to all of this new as well, what I wonder is, what are we going to need to update, and how are we going to get there quickly enough to be able to attend to the new needs that artificial intelligence and AI will bring up? So I think the old quote is, technology is benign, it's an amplifier. It amplifies the best parts of our nature, and it amplifies the worst parts of our nature. And so with the technology that's changing as rapidly as this one, as an amplifier, what do we hope to see from that, I guess, is one of the key critical questions that we should leave with, ideally, after this conversation.
I do notice there's a few hands raised as I'm trying to flip through screens. Maybe want to take a few questions here.
Absolutely.
Dave.
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, one of the big problems with ChatGPT is that when it doesn't know something, it makes it up. So it states it with great confidence, so it doesn't look like it's lying, but it is. And and it doesn't give you any links so that you can go back and fact check it. So I mean, I think that's a pretty big danger.
Yeah, Dave, that's a really great point. And a couple of thoughts about that. One is OpenAI acknowledges that ChatGPT is still in its research phase. And so it's not even up to production yet. This is the research phase. And so that's just a note that anything older than 2021, ChatGPT hasn't actually been fed as information set. Its information set is frozen as of 2021. And so if you ask it a question about something that happened in 2022, to Dave's point, it will confidently give you the answer. And you won't know that it's not the answer without having some background knowledge about the particular thing, and then going through and verifying it. Now, if you ask it whether or not it was a verifiable answer, it will admit its mistake, but my experience has been it will still try to come up with another unverifiable answer. So to the point of like, what are we going to do with this and the learning that goes along with it? One of the critical thinking skills, is amplified by that very thing. I'm glad you brought that up, Dave. That's a really good point.
Yeah, we were having this conversation just before as well. And, I'm currently reading the book From Reopen to Reinvent by Michael Horn. And, he's made some, interesting points as these AI technologies come out. There's definitely value and power in what they can do, but it's going to reinforce the value of critical thinking, and it's going to continue to amplify the need for, this isn't going to replace the need for basic skills and basic understandings, because the technology is only as good as the user has a foundational knowledge within content, and to be able to ask the questions and parameters in a way for the AI technologies to generate a valid product for the end user to actually use.
Yeah,
Can I make another comment or two?
of course.
Well, first of all, I mean, my experience is that it's not just the time that they, the data that they've inserted. It will make mistakes even before 2020, because there's so much contradictory information out there on the internet, and it doesn't have any way to decide what's true and what's not. I'm also really concerned that if students start using ChatGPT as a crutch, for example, writing essays, they're not going to get practice in critical and creative thinking. I think ChatGPT has enormous potential. I think we just need to be clear-eyed about the fact that it has good aspects and bad aspects, and we've only known about it for 4 months.
Incredibly well stated. Exactly our point, and the thing that why we were excited to be able to present to this particular group is that's exactly right. And if you ask it for research, it will make up research, and it will make up the links to the research as well. So it is something to know. So it's a really great segue. I don't know if there are any other hands up at all, if there's anybody else that's hoping to make a comment. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and figure out which screen I'm sharing. I'm going to go straight to my ChatGPT. All right, so the next slide in our presentation actually was I can't see which screen am I sharing. Are you seeing my Google launch page, or are you seeing ChatGPT?
You've got ChatGPT up.
Great, thank you. So the next slide in this is to go to openai.com and create an account for yourself so that you can start trying some of these things as well. OpenAI is going to ask for your phone number to verify your account so that it can't be taken over by bots. And one of the questions somebody asked ChatGPT was, in what ways could this be used unethically? And one of the ways is you could feed it a bunch of data that would actually demonstrate bias. It would create bias in it. And so that's why the phone number piece is a protection, in order to make sure that that it's not a bot that's signing up for it to provide biased information to start bending the model. So I recommend giving it a shot and trying it out. Here is some examples that I've been working on, and then we'll switch over to our next slide too, because I have some sample prompts for you. Sorry, I'm doing a little bit of juggling right now because I want to make sure. Let me do this first. I'm going to go share this other screen real quick with the slide deck on it. Okay. And now what I want you to be able to see on this slide right here is I've got a bit.ly there. Is that showing, Anthony?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So if you go to that bit.ly / MASA - P prompt S samples, I've just put together a spreadsheet in which I've created, 9 examples, I think, of potential prompts. And what I did, and what I'll switch to show my other screen here in a second, is how I generated those prompts. Those prompts are intentionally iterative. They aren't prompts to get an answer out of AI that you want with the first prompt. The prompts are designed to help you provide clarity and additional information in order to get the results that you want. And so I'm going to leave that up for just one more second, and then let people get into that spreadsheet and look at some of those. And so if you've created a ChatGPT account, now you can just copy one of those prompts and you can put it into ChatGPT and see how it behaves. I'm going to switch over to ChatGPT now. It's almost as if I went through a major global health event and had to do a lot of video chatting. Okay, so let me just make this. He said that with such confidence before he started Screwing up. Okay. Now can you see my ChatGPT? Eric,
Yep.
thumbs up. Perfect. All right. So if you're in that spreadsheet, you'll see the prompts. And here's what I asked. I started off with very simple. Help me write tips for writing a ChatGPT 3.5 prompt. And then I got a list. And here's my suggestion, and the way that I'm really enjoying using this is I use this list. Some tips for this is, as you're looking at my page on the left-hand side, you can see the various chats. Each one of these instances, consider it a conversation. And so if you want to hone your conversation on a particular topic, you want it to happen all within one chat session, and consider it like this is the new person that you're speaking to. And then you can provide additional information to that particular setting. So it trains the AI on that particular chat to give you some results that you want. And so in this one, I've asked it to help me write tips for writing a successful ChatGPT 3.5 prompt. I said 3.5 because I am paying the $20 a month for ChatGPT Plus. I think it's well worth the price. And so I used ChatGPT 4 to ask how to make some ChatGPT 3.5 prompts. I got a list of 10 tips. I said, great. So then I said, can you write a closed style prompt to help people write a successful prompt? And so I'm digging in now, trying to get this so that it's usable to someone other than myself. Here it goes: define the goal, clarify the question, add context, include keywords. And then I said, well, great. So I think I'm getting closer. Give me an example. What does this look like with that in a simple paragraph form? And it said, all right, here you go. There's a goal. I want a ChatGPT to provide information about growing tomatoes. I didn't give it the topic. And so it went out on its own, and it said, Minnesota, March, it hasn't been above 50. Let me rub some salt in the wound and have you think about growing tomatoes. So then I decided to take that information, and what you'll notice is it's an iterative process. Provide list of 5 optimized output formats. So here's the list of optimized output formats that you can request from the AI: a summary, bullet points, step-by-step guide, pros and cons. And then I said, let's do this with a scenario. Great. So then, as you see, now I've got this thing primed. I've got the pump primed. And so I said, for the weather closure, and it walked through it. It said, define the goal. There's the goal. But then it gave my prompt right here that you can use in the chat. And then now that the pump is primed, I am able to just, how about for an HR job description? Here's the prompt. How about for teacher evaluation? Here's the prompt. And this is all because I've done this within the context of one conversation in this platform. And so it's now I can give it very shorthand information because I got it formatted the way that I want. You learn a lot by iterating with the platform and the service. All right, so there's all of the different ones that I created. Now, to use this, what I can do is take one of these prompts, copy it, and I'm going to start a new conversation. So I click new chat. We'll talk about this. I just got this morning. Now I have plugins. I'm not going to get distracted. It's real easy for me to get distracted. I saw lots of friends on this call, so they know. But I'm going to go to ChatGPT 5, and I'm going to paste in that prompt. And then it's going to respond to the prompt and give me some information that I can use as a starting point to get closer to the outcome that I hope. Those little items that are in brackets are all things that you can add to the conversation. So I can just say, I can add audience to this. I can add dates and details to this. And as I add those, then I can ask it to regenerate the response. And so that's how an iterative process to use this can work really well to get quickly, very quickly, to the topic that you want. This is real quick on, I mean, there's so many different things. Like one, I was a language arts teacher. And so as a teacher, summarize Walk Two Moons. So I loved the story Walk Two Moons. And so great. Now I have a summary that as a teacher I could use, might help me pull out some keywords and phrases out of this summary. But as I was a teacher of middle school language arts, one of the things we were focused on with this particular book was setting. I thought setting was critically important. It helped me create a nifty little map that showed the hero's journey from Bybanks, Kentucky to Lewiston, Idaho. Now I could say, list all the locations from Walk to Moons. So now it's going to go ahead and it's going to list all of the locations in Walk to Moons. And so as I'm a teacher, again, getting prepared to teach this, and I want to talk about setting, now I've got a nice list. Pretty cool. I'm going to take it up a step and I'm going to say, make this a table with chapters of the locations included. And then it's going to generate a study guide for me.
As this is generating here, you know, one of the other things that we kind of talked about, and you think about differentiation in the classroom for the teacher. So let's say you have a passage, or you generated this summary, and you have a student who's at a 4th grade reading level. You know, you can then ask ChatGPT, can you re-summarize this at a 4th grade reading level? Or please take this passage and summarize it at a 6th grade reading level if it's a, you know, highly technical scientific passage. So, you know, this creates an opportunity for teachers to quickly take prompts and writing and put it in a differentiated fashion generated for them, to help them create classrooms that are more accessible as they're, you know, bridging those opportunities within that learning space. One of the non-instructional examples we had talked about this morning as well is, you know, we're all technology leaders kind of facilitating this conversation. All were in the classroom at some point, and we often navigate our technical staff or even operations staff who, you know, want to implement something in the system, and we have them, you know, hey, draft me a communication of what this might look like to, you know, this project for implementing the new MFA prompt or MFA within our system. And technical staff tend to write very lengthy technical emails that I'm often processing through with them. How do we summarize them and make them in a fashion that our end users can actually consume them and understand them? So we've taken a few examples of communications that our technical teams might put together from their technical mind space, threw it in ChatGPT and asked it to, okay, summarize this in a way that an average non-technical end user could understand, and generate it in a 1-paragraph email. So it can take those highlights and recraft that in a way that, as we're trying to design better ways to more effectively communicate with you know, whether it's a parent, community member, our staff within our organization, you know, ChatGPT and tools like this can be utilized in a great way to help go through that iterative writing process and navigate and simplify and help make things consumable for our organizations.
So go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to jump in there. What Sean is just pulling up here is like, that's a real example of something we're working through right now, is like a wireless transition. So this is a technical project that has some hopefully pretty positive implications in the classroom. But, you know, you can maybe hear, as we talk about this, you'll hear like what we're working on a prompt, or we're working through it. And so you can see, you know, like we asked for an explanation. It gave a fairly technical explanation. So Sean went in and said, like, let's write a short email that actually explains this to staff. I think I want to say we even asked it to like simplify it even more for non-technical staff to understand. So, I mean, even for me, this is just a really helpful example on the operations side of something that would, you know, it would take me a fair amount of time to work through at least the outline of this and how to explain this pretty complex idea to the general staff.
Yeah, and you know, again, I'm going to highlight this as you explore and think about using this. You're gonna give it a shot, and it's not a Google moment, right? Like when you Google, you want those answers to be on the first page of the first 5 results. They're not anymore. It's a dumpster fire in there sometimes. But now what you're going to do is you're going to work with it. And so I didn't know what this meant. I'll be open. So then I just said, well, okay, great. What is it? Explain its use. And then here I said, write it simple for non-technical staff. I wanted to let you know that we're making some changes to our network to make it work better for everyone. And within 10 minutes, I've changed this and also have increased my understanding of that particular piece too. Eric mentioned something else that I just want to highlight too, is one of the most interesting uses for me as someone who is old enough to have developed a voice in my writing is if I ask it to write on my behalf, it doesn't sound like me. But I can ask it to create bullet points so that I can work on these things. And so I asked it to create an AI-enhanced interaction in K-12 education that would highlight, improve, increase our human interactions. So the objective, enhance human interactions in the classroom by using technology, improve learning outcomes. This is the outline that was generated based on my prompt. And so now what I have is ways to have this conversation. So for any of you who are planning any of those major initiatives and trying to think about the outlines on this, this will help generate your outline to get you started. I took this, I copied it, and I put it in a Google Doc that I have available for you at the end of this slide deck too, that I'll share with you so that you can take a look at this. Now, when I mentioned you handle each conversation as a singular conversation, well, if I want to begin to expand, I can take objective one, copy it, move it here and say, and give it a prompt where you're going to begin to flesh out the details of that particular piece as well. I'm not going to go through that because I've already done it a few times, but you get the point is it will help you in the ways in which you want it to help you.
Sean, I see a question in there while you have your ChatGPT up.
Yep.
David had said an example of students using this for cheating, and maybe if we have a new example, like I feel like the novel The Hatchet was a pretty big part of my essay writing career as a younger person, and maybe you could just run through a couple of prompts around how people could use this to either write essays, create an outline, and just highlight some of those examples.
Yeah, so if I wanted to shortcut it, I'd say write a theme essay that is 5 paragraphs long and is about the novel Hatchet.
Well, and as this is spitting out, I want to share one of the conversations we've had in our organization around this component. And as Sean put the prompt in, it's going to give you a theme around Hatchet. And reality is in this space, students could go and search this on the internet. It's going to take them a while, but there are themes and essays already written out there on most topics that if it's a very foundational, just regurgitation of information or what you've read, assessment that a classroom teacher is doing, the information exists out there, whether it's through ChatGPT or not. So we're really trying to push our instructors and our educational staff around what is it you're trying to assess and how are you being intentional around the design of that assessment that's really pushing for more higher level critical thinking around the aspects of what you want them to get out that isn't just pure kind of bringing back a summary of information or regurgitating facts to get more meaningful assessment design is where a lot of our conversation has started to move towards in our organization. And then utilizing how could ChatGPT be brought into the classroom for trying to create a basic outline of what you might want to write on or what you might want to research. And then how do you bring in aspects around a student's independent critical thinking and independent voice and being able to share their perspectives and thoughts, which artificial intelligence isn't going to bring into the context of what it's going to produce.
Great. Eric, I don't know if you want to share your screen now to close out these final few slides that we have. And then at the last slide is some of the resources.
Yes, I will do that right now. I'll pull that up. So we have as you can see my screen here, a second mentee here. We're asking you to check in, like, how do you see the potential of ChatGPT? Again, if you could scan that with your phone, on the QR code with your phone, or at menti.com. And I'm going to pull up some of these results, and I will, Dave, if you could help us leave the resources for this session as a Google slide, a link to our Google Slides. I'll make sure to put these ideas into the Google slide afterwards as well. I'll leave that up there. I just need to resize my screen here. I think I have this pulled up, it's still here. Yeah, after we get a couple more answers here, I'll leave the link up there and pull these up here. And the other day I had dropped a comment in the chat as well around using a footer that I think we want to talk through. And then Natasha mentioned ChatGPT versus Bard. Bard is Google's version of AI that they are rolling out in beta to those who have signed up for it in the last week or two.
Yeah, as you're answering that, if you haven't seen the Google Workspace video about how they're going to include AI into all of their services, that's pretty compelling as well. And I think I mentioned at the very beginning, ChatGPT reflects a brand. It's a type of large language model AI. It's supposed to allow us to interact with it as if we were interacting with another person, and then to respond to us as though it were a person. And there are a lot of those coming online. I just saw something, there was over 200 developments in AI in the last 10 days. Some of them in Canva. If you haven't played with Canva lately, Canva's got some image generating. I mean, we're really just looking at one slice of AI with this particular session and this particular platform.
There's a couple, as I see like Time Saver for writing RFP. I mean, in my current role, my mind jumps to some of those more operational or instructional technology type tools. But I think of, an RFP or a grant. Oftentimes you're asked some of those same questions around the makeup of your school in different ways. But again, I appreciate the responses here and just the ideas around how you see ChatGPT use within your systems, right? Like many industries have already taken advantage of it. Real estate agents, right? Their listing narrative. And again, I'll publish this full list. So if you are still in there typing in an answer, I'll publish all this and put it on a slide at the end here with our resources as well.
And so as we come into some closing thoughts, again, as I jumped in, we're in a very unique space that, this really has become a hot topic really since December, even though the technology has kind of been around prior to that, but the evolution that it's occurring at is very rapid right now. And it's definitely very evident that, we're not going to be in a space in education where we can block it and stop it unless we're going to kind of start to remove technology out of our instructional settings. As Sean and Eric mentioned, you've got Google's AI technologies that are coming into the full Google for Workspace environment. So whether you're using a Google Doc or Google Slide Deck, that technology is going to be there. ChatGPT, that particular brand, is hooking into a lot of the educational tools you're already using. Like I mentioned, Khan Academy, Quizlet, Sean mentioned Canva. There's more on the list. I know IXL is having conversations about hooking into these technologies as well. So it's going to continue to grow and expand. And it's a great opportunity for us to start engaging in those critical conversations about what are the opportunities around this? How do we amplify our learning environment with the possibilities that are presented here? As well as how are we also having those conversations about what does digital citizenship mean, and how do we keep reinforcing and enhancing that learning environment with digital citizenship and digital hygiene in mind. And Sean, do you want to chat about this resource page we got linked in here?
Well, I'll open this up here, but this is Sean unmutes. Sharing
Yeah,
a resource.
thanks. You would think I
Alright.
just went through a global event. Anyway, so I will not take credit for this. This is Christine Ganyu's work, who is my tech integrationist for the secondary level. This is an example of our summer PD. So we're putting together this document right here for staff to use. And so if you went to that short URL, you have a copy of this now. These are information that we've gathered over the past couple of months that will help teach you more about ChatGPT. And so any one of those lines has a whole variety of resources included in it. And I would encourage you to feel free to use it on your own to learn, or if you would like to use this for staff development, you can feel free to rip a copy of it and use it, or you can certainly reach out to me and I can get you in touch with Christine, the author of this. This represents a group project. I did check with her to make sure that it was all right that I shared that. But I just wanted to share some additional resources. And then there's another one that we'll send out as the follow-up. That is the outline that I showed you, which is how are you using K-12, ChatGPT or AI in K-12, and an outline of considerations. I'm going to share that Google Doc with you as well so that you can begin using that too if you want.
And I will, as we wrap up here, I mean, I see a couple of resources shared and a few questions that we would like to answer. And I see Dr. Hillman had dropped in a chatbot called Consensus that is intending to synthesize research. And we will, I'll copy and paste that link over to our new resources doc as well. But looks like a fun way to save some time. Then I know, Natasha, you'd asked about ChatGPT versus Bard, and I've had a little bit of time to play around with both. I think like Sean has mentioned a couple of times, ChatGPT is the Kleenex brand of AI. And so I haven't found any big notable differences. I know if you do a search on the internet, there are a lot of different varying opinions right now. But it seems like ChatGPT is definitely a little bit more refined in my opinion so far, just since it's been out there in the wild for so long. But it'd be interesting to see who else enters into that arena.
Yeah, Bard is like a less cool version of ChatGPT at the moment. But as someone in some of the stuff that I've read, as someone pointed out, for the since its inception, the largest search engine in the world is Google, and number 2 is YouTube. And YouTube has all of those videos with transcripts. And so the data lake that Bard has access to is the largest data lake that has been generated on the internet in our lifetime. So what its real capability turns out to be is going to be pretty interesting to experience. I think I mentioned earlier too, one of the things that blows my mind is we're still in the research phase of these things. And then my last bit of advice for everybody who's remaining is you're going to try this out and your first impression might be, this is kind of a fun little novelty. Like, this is cool. Yeah, that's a neat answer it gave me. Spend time with it. It's going to save you time. It is really legitimately going to get you time back. And my whole point has been the reason that we invest in and learn about technology is so that we can use the technology to enhance our human interactions, to save us time that can be reutilized with people. And so that would be my final thoughts about this new technology. And I appreciate the invitation by Anthony and Eric to be here today to get to share this with everybody.
Thanks, Sean and Eric, and thanks everyone who joined us. There's a lot the three of us could kind of continue to engage in as we have been spending a lot of time engaging and talking and looking through these resources and playing with it from an educational perspective to look at some of the potential. So again, thanks everyone for the time today.
Hey, I've got a question. I don't know if I missed it or not, but do we have access to this presentation?
Yes, we will get the presentation link sent out. We wanted to make sure that the Menti links and everything were in the slide deck before
Okay.
we handed it over to Lori and Dave to push out to everyone else.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I see Natasha has been using Bard instead. Maybe it's just because I feel like a little left out of the Google loop and I'm not in Bard yet.
That's honest, Sean. I do see, I feel like we kind of glossed over the question around like, are you, if you're using ChatGPT, like Davey's question around like, are you using some sort of footer? Are you acknowledging that you had AI help you write or develop these plans? And I know, I mean, I have some thoughts as well. I know it's a good question to ask. I think all of this is moving so fast. We have not here flushed out anything more formal, but it's definitely something that's been in the back of my mind, even as I've outlined things that I feel like are my own because I've worked with them for so long. You know, I feel like that prompt has become mine. I feel like the work has kind of become mine because I worked with the outline. But you know, at the end of the day, yes, I did use some AI tools to help get to there. So I think that's a really good question to ask. And you know, we're not really acknowledging that or giving you a definitive answer, but I don't know if any of you have any other opinions or thoughts on that.
I would say it even goes into the same realm of a lot of what we do in education is we borrow frameworks and ideas from each other all the time. I think about the RFP we just wrote for our access points and switches. We took pieces from what Anoka had put together in their RFP as a public document a year ago, and what Rosemount Apple Valley Egan had put together. But we don't necessarily always acknowledge in something like an RFP that, hey, I framed this off of these other districts' RFPs that were out there, or other communications. As I've watched communications come out, whether it's related to weather or school closure or e-learning plans, it's some of that collaborative nature that we naturally do. We now just have a technology tool that's interfacing with some of that.
That's right. Yep. Personally, I really have not had it spit out something that I was comfortable copying and pasting directly as communication. So I've worked with it. I've worked with everything I've done in there. And it's been, so I'm not yet acknowledging it, but I did ask it to do an APA citation for ChatGPT and it did kick one out. So maybe that's the way to go. I don't know.
Does that count? That counts, right? It did it for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. I mean, it's formatted as APA and it provides that. So it's not difficult to create that citation. But then some people are talking about, is it really a citation if it's generative? If it's new information that's being generated by using old information, then is it really a citation? That's ChatGPT MASA Master Class 2.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Sean, and thanks, Anthony, and thanks, Dave and Lori and MASA.
It looks like, did CJ have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, within your school districts, at what level are you beginning to have that discussion around the digital citizenship and the ethics and the type of transformational future that this might have, both in the classroom as well as operationally? Is that something that's really just at the executive level across your school districts, or is this something you've taken to the boards? Is this something that the boards have taken to their communities? It sounds like you believe this is going to have a transformational type of impact on education. And I'm just curious on where you guys are in that journey.
I can speak for us in Osseo. We're really at early stages of this. We're having conversations at the teacher level. So our secondary curriculum coordinator is meeting with our, right now our English language arts teachers and our social studies teachers who've had the most concern about what this could do, or acknowledge some of the opportunities that have been in there. So they are, starting to facilitate those conversations about what does this mean instructionally, and what are the conversations we need to have, meaningful conversations we need to have around the ethics and digital citizenship piece around the work that they create. I think we've started scratching the surface on a larger digital citizenship conversation with our library media specialist team, who helps to facilitate that oftentimes in our schools. But again, just early conversations of, here's the awareness of what this tool could do. What do we need to start considering? So nothing formalized yet. And we're planning on having a conversation at our cabinet level here yet this spring, just around the functionality and opportunities within the tool, and kind of the ethical considerations that, I mentioned here today on that slide. Still very early, nowhere near towards having here's what it's going to look like or where we're going to go, but just getting the conversation started is the key first step.
All I would offer, CJ, is that sheet that I shared that reflects, like, we're leaning into helping teachers to understand and to use this, and to know more about the ways in which they can use it. That's our earliest steps, and then we've been talking about it at a leadership level about what it might mean. One of the things that we did do, and I took this inspiration from Natasha and Adina, was we blocked the API from being able to use the Google account to create it for students, because the terms of service say it's for 18 and older. So we did restrict our Google accounts from being able to be used to create an OpenAI account. So that's just a concrete step that we've taken, but that was inspired by the work that was going on in Adina and the team there.
I guess an extra piece I would add is just kind of the speed at which some of these conversations are happening, at least within the organization I'm in. In the last week, we've had, I think, just an open discussion at an administrative level with directors and principals around, what are you seeing everywhere from, I just learned about this and it's a way to plagiarize, so let's block it, to, I'm sitting down with our PLC at the secondary level, ELA PLC, to talk about how we could maybe use this for good, or at least help teachers understand how it could be used to help them. But that's all happened within probably the last 8 days. And so I just think it's quite a bit of speed. Matt, you just dropped in that your adult son uses ChatGPT like he used to use Google. I like that lens.
Yeah, and Natasha mentioned that the terms of service have been updated to 13 plus. So thanks for letting me know the change, Natasha. I got to make a change here. Thank you. But you can keep us here for too long, because we'll keep talking about it. One of the things, I just got plugins today, and so now it has a Wolfram Alpha plugin, which is pretty amazing. But actually, the coolest thing that I found today was it has an Instacart plugin. So you can, with this plugin, I asked it to give me a low FODMAP. My daughter has some food sensitivities, meal plan for the week. And then it asked me, do you want me to create the shopping list? And I said, yes. And it gave me a link to Instacart, and they were all in Instacart, and I could have clicked purchase. So that was done in 5 minutes, if 5 minutes. So plugins are coming, which will extend the interesting part of it too. All right, this is what happens when I'm with friends. I got to stop.
Well, we thank you so much for being here, and I feel like there might be a need for some ongoing conversation as people explore and look at implications for how it's used in schools. So we really appreciate you making time to teach us.
If I might, for the remaining people, is that all right? Anthony, would it be all right for me to mention that summer session in July? Is this appropriate?
Yeah, you plug in.
Yeah, great. So as an acknowledgement of all of the changes and things that have been going on in technology, and as part of recent ASCD honor that I received, I'm supposed to do a statewide project. And so we're going to have on July 27th, I'll send out the save the date information, but a day dedicated to technology and leadership level, because I don't know that has been done to the degree that it has for classroom teachers. And so the day will be focused on specifically about how technology can be used to do operational pieces, but then also for principals and assistant principals, focus on what does good teaching look like with it. And so put a circle on the calendar, July 27th, and there's going to be more information coming out about that before too long.
Thanks for sharing that, Sean.
And we'll probably have some ChatGPT follow-up sessions within that space as this keeps evolving and our dialogues keep engaging. But definitely, if you have any other questions or interest, Eric, Sean, or I, feel free to reach out to us at any time. And Lori and Dave, depending on what future interest is, if we'd like to do a 2.0 or some follow-ups, we're definitely open to those ideas as well.
I would second that, Anthony. Folks still on the call, if there are questions that you have or things that like, well, gee, I'd like to learn more about this, or, my question for you is really around helping students or anyone identify, Sean talked about, well, you have to have some knowledge to be able to ask questions, but sometimes it's like, well, how do you even know? I saw a picture this morning of the Pope in a white fur coat and showing how we're using AI to create that image. Well, okay, in my head, I'm thinking the Pope's probably not walking around like that, but there are many things that I see over the course of my life that I think, oh, that would never happen. And then it happens. So how do you determine whether or not something is true or not, both in images and in text? So I think that's another great conversation to have.
Definitely.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for being here, and we look forward to doing this again.
Thank you.